Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. Today is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. It's celebrated for 2 days. The dates this year are October 2nd to October 4th. And the reason there are 3 dates in that span is the Jewish holidays are celebrated from sundown to sundown. So sundown on the 2nd until, sundown on the 4th is Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. And it's a celebration of renewal and God's sacrifice to us. And the traditional Torah reading for Rosh Hashanah is, I read some scriptures yesterday about the sacrifice and how the sacrifices were to be done during this festival, and what was to be sacrificed. But today I'm going to do the traditional temple reading that you would hear if you went to a synagogue on Rosh Hashanah. And this is from Exodus chapter 22. And it came to pass after these days that God did tempt Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham, he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only one, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and get thee to the land of Moriah. And after him there is for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son and his clave of wood for the burnt offering, and rose and went into the place which God had told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father, and said, My father, he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar above the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. But an angel of the Lord called out to him out of the heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. He said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou the least unto him. For now I know thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only one, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him there was a ram that was caught in the thicket by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Adon Irish, And it is said to this day, on the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham the second time out of heaven, and said, By myself have I sworn unto the Lord, since this because hast done this thing, thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, and I will greatly bless thee, and I will exceedingly multiply thy seed as the stars in heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and the seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast hearkened unto my voice. And Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. And it came to pass after those things that it was told to Abraham, saying, Behold, Micah, she also hath borne children unto Nabal thy brother. Uz was the firstborn, Buz was the second, Kimmel was the father of Abram, and Casid and Kazo and Philip and Elaph and Betzi. And the Betzel begot Rebekah, whose those 8 did Micah bear to Nabal, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reemah, she also bore Tebach and Geshem and Tashish and Mishon. I just want to go ahead and finish the chapter. I had previously talked about Abraham's 6 sons born by his wife after Sarah passed away. But also, Father Abraham, had a father, and he had a brother who had a family as well. So the descendants of his brother would have married into his children as well. But maybe, not for generations later. They would have been first cousins. I don't know how that worked. But anyway, the reason that on Rosh Hashanah the ram's horn is blown is because of the ram that was caught in the thicket that replaced the sacrifice of Isaac. Now, we look at Abraham on this rock. And this rock exists until this day. And it says right in here that this rock is known. This mountain is known. And it's under the dome of the rock in Jerusalem. They believe that's where Abraham was going to sacrifice his only son to God. And God said, after he was willing to do that, you will be blessed. Your seed will bless the earth. All nations will be blessed because of you and your descendants. The ram's horn is blown on Rosh Hashanah. It's blown on Shabbat. It's blown at all kinds of festivals and events for the Jewish people. Even at the beginning of a war, they would blow these ram horns. And I don't know if you've heard the ram's horns. They call it the shovah. And it's an amazing sound. I mean, it's very voluminous. And it is making an announcement. Here we are at the new year. We're blowing the trumpets, making an announcement that a new year is coming in, that things are to change. Every single solitary year, things change. The year changes. The numerology with the Hebrew alphabet is deep, and the meaning of each year is different. And I don't know enough about that to go into it. I just want to make people aware of it. There's plenty of information online if you wanted to research that yourself. But this year has 2 5s in it. I will share this. It has 2 hays. And a hay means grace. So there's going to be a lot of grace this year. And that's all I will say. But the grace of God is with us. Always. But maybe particularly this year we need grace from God. But this also is, I almost want to use a literary term, foreshadowing. Because here Father Abraham is willing to sacrifice his only son. Remember, Ishmael and Hagar left. So Isaac is his only son at this point. When Sarah passes away years later and he has those other 6 sons, he didn't know he was going to have those other 6 sons. He didn't know Sarah was going to pass away. All he knew was he has this one blessed and loved son, and he was willing to sacrifice him. And here we have the picture of God in Abraham and Father Abraham. And here we have the picture of Jesus Christ in the sacrifice of Isaac. And God knew that Jesus Christ was coming. God knew he was going to have to sacrifice his only son. And he wanted to see that the man he gave the promise and the covenant to was willing to do the same. That mankind would sacrifice for him because he was going to make the ultimate sacrifice and put his only son through suffering and death. But it didn't stop there. He was resurrected. Case of Isaac, Isaac was never touched. But what obedience on the part of Isaac to let his father bind him and lay him on the wood. Abraham was an old man. Isaac was a young man. But Isaac did not fight. He laid on that wood, and he laid there as his father raised that knife. Before the angel came, he thought his father was going to sacrifice him to God. And what dedication did Jesus Christ have on that cross? You'll have a happy new year. And it's time to think about and reevaluate things in your life. Whether you're Jewish or whether you're Christian, it's a good time of year for Christians even to celebrate and reflect back on the history of the Jewish people and what events led to the birth of Jesus Christ, and how God prepared us, mankind in general, and the Jewish people for Jesus Christ to be born. But anyway, I have things beeping here. I've got to go. You all have a happy new year.